Welcome to the Pump and Dump channel. Today talking again about natural gas and CNX Resources. So yesterday was a bad day in the natural gas price. I saw it break below this trend line that I had established here. I came to the conclusion on Tuesday, Wednesday that there was this trend line that I had spotted on I think Monday or Tuesday. I came to the conclusion that this trend line was very strong. 5 times we tested it, we didn't break through, and it was pushing us back down towards the support here that we held back on the third. I called that correctly, this support. I was wrong many other times, but whatever. So of course I had the theory that we would go down to this support and we'd bounce up and we'd like seesaw, kind of beautifully between the upper bound and the lower bounds of this nice triangle. But that didn't happen. We saw weakness. We were being pushed back towards the support line, and I decided when we broke through it that the right decision was to sell, to lighten up some of my shares in CNX Resources. So I sold yesterday about 200 shares of my position at 710. I had built up the position from when the natural gas price was at 250. I had like 140 shares in CNX Resources. I built the position up to 1,200, and going into yesterday, things had changed, and I decided to lighten up. And when I lightened up, I said that if the natural gas price was weak today before the open, I would sell into strength or into weakness, regardless of which way it goes. So we kind of opened below the trend line. We had this candlestick here that was below the trend line. So I was hoping that there would be some strength, and pre-market the stock was trading up, and I was like very thankful of that. So I put in some more sale orders from 725 all the way up to 741. I sold into the strength, and I wanted to sell at 745, but sometimes when you're on your phone and you're not paying too much attention, trying to do it quick, you press buy instead of sell, and you don't check what happened, and then you end up buying instead of selling. So ultimately what it came down to is that I have now halved my position from yesterday, down to 600 shares overall, profit and loss. The euro was a bit strong the last 2 days, and that kind of worked into it at this point in time, 734 on CNX Resources. The loss is about 33 euros, but I still have 600 shares in the position. I think that if we continue going lower, I'll just keep easing out, and if we do break back into this triangle, I'll still have a substantial position that's meaningful and will have an effect in terms of profitability over the long term. Now, the thing is, we still have the earnings report here coming out in just over 2 weeks. It's a way till there. We can stay below there. We can break through here and come back after or before the earnings report. You never know. Just going to make some buy and sell decisions based upon how the natural gas price is performing and what the intrinsic value of CNX Resources is at that point in time. So getting into the natural gas price or the market, I think what has happened is that we have gone lower. You can see it going down here and coming up to here and then going back down. I think what's happened is that last year, when there was this big surge in the price, what I read was that there were stories of shortages, and when there are stories of shortages, the buyers, the utilities or the LNG terminals abroad, they want to buy more because they're worried of shortages, so they don't want to be caught off guard without enough supply. And they pay up, of course, for this. When there's stories of shortages, the owners of the futures, or the whatever you want to call them, the producers of natural gas, they ask more and more for the in terms of the price, because they are the market has to pay the price that the market is setting. So what I think happened was that like the LNG, the demand from abroad was strong, as reflected in the LNG carrier rates, but also like I said, I think they bought too much, and as a consequence we saw the price come back down strongly as the fracking season started again going into the new year. So the budget kind of was blown out last year, probably for parts of this year too. So as a consequence, they want lower prices to kind of make up for overpaying up here. And what we've seen is also a lot of contracting in terms of forward sales or hedges or whatever you want to call them. CNX Resources and Antero Resources, which I've covered on this channel, they for the most part hedged I think almost their entire production for the year. So given that scenario, the spot market is probably more reflective of retail investors, speculators, traders, whatever you want to call them, who are not buying natural gas futures because they want natural gas. They're buying it because they think that they can sell it to someone else at a higher price. And usually what you get in this kind of scenario where the real users of the product, or the real buyers, the utilities and the LNG terminals abroad, who are probably supplying the LNG for the same purpose to utilities there, they are kind of like in a situation where they've contracted their purchasing, so they're not really active in the spot market. They don't need to buy. And when you have retail investors or speculators, let's call them, who are buying for the purpose of buying low and selling high without intention to take delivery, what it kind of ends up being is a feeding frenzy, where one guy is trying to buy and then sell it higher to another guy, and that other guy is looking at where the guy probably bought it and he says he wants it lower, and then they want lower lows and lower highs, and it kind of just goes down into the toilet. So that is kind of what I think is driving this market at this point in time. The retail investor is really, or the trader speculator is probably trying to inch out some gains. And today there was a news article I saw. It was talking about the US-China trade talks, and it was of course talking very positively about it, talking also about how China is a huge LNG importer. I think they're the second or the biggest now in the world, with Japan being the other, first or second, I don't know. Doesn't really matter, I think, but the key thing is that that kind of news at a key point in time where the price has broken below a support line, and it was below this support line until a bit into after the open, and then it started rallying. First the stocks like CNX Resources started rallying, and then the natural gas price started rallying. And I think that those kind of rallies, just like when we saw the Saudi Aramco news with the drone attacks, that kind of probably brings in a lot of speculators, and like I said, they have no intention of taking delivery of natural gas. So they are not just buyers, but they are also sellers. Once they buy, they establish themselves as sellers in the future. So that's kind of what I think, why the natural gas price moved above this trend line again. It made an effort to go above, but you can see it's now already trading back below it. I think that that we go lower over the next couple of days. That's why, as I mentioned, I sold into the strength that was there, and I would have sold into the weakness. The only difference with the strength today is that instead of expanding losses, I've managed to decrease losses thanks to the market. So I think that's going to do it for this video. I'm going to just now talk about the relative performance as the last point. CNX Resources from the 25th of September was at 748. It reached a high of 748 today. It didn't break through that resistance. It's been as low as 680, and it's been trading in a range going sideways at the same in the same time period. Natural gas went from 250 to 221 at this point in time. So I think I quite clearly underlined how the superior product selection or investment vehicle selection can mitigate losses when you are wrong. And I did mention in one of my previous videos that if you want to make the big money in the stock market, you have to be right about everything. And I was wrong about the natural gas price. It didn't seesaw between these ranges like I thought it would. And that's kind of where it's at. Nothing more to say. I can't show any huge gains. Just repositioning my portfolio to take into account the risk-reward scenario, and I'm trying to outperform the peer group by buying the superior product. So I guess that's going to do it for today for this video. Remember, this is not investment advice or recommendations for you to buy or not to buy these securities or investment vehicles. That's your choice alone. Leave your comments, questions, and opinions in the comment section if you have anything to share. You can subscribe if you like this kind of content, and that's all I have to say. Have a good day.